Dear students, this is a Theta TV from MOROGORO and my name is Wilson Anatory, a biology teacher. Today I want to share a topic, homeostasis. It is a topic for Form 3 students as per ordinary level secondary school syllabus in Tanzania. Homeostasis and the subtopic is regulation. Remember that this topic is having two major subtopics, regulation and excretion. But today we are going to share this subtopic, regulation. And these are the lesson objectives which I expect that by the end of the lesson you should be able to explain the concept of temperature regulation in animals, to describe the mechanism of temperature regulation in mammals, to describe the regulatory mechanism of blood sugar and mineral salts. Now let us start with the concept of regulation. What is regulation? What is regulation? The term regulation is sometimes called homeostasis. So if I say homeostasis, it's the same as saying regulation. Because homeostasis, this is the biological term which originates from Greek word homo. Homo means same. So stasis is standing, same standing, meaning that the body should have a constant maintenance of the various conditions like temperature, like pH, like sugars. These have to be maintained at the same level. That is why it is same standing, same level in the body. Homeostasis, by the definition, is a constant maintenance of internal environmental conditions in organisms. A constant maintenance of internal environment conditions in organisms. It involves the adjustment to the content and the temperature of the blood, meaning that we take water, we take food, we take mineral salts in the body, and these materials have to be balanced in the blood. The adjustment is caused by the fact that the body of living things do not need to have the excess of unwanted materials inside the body, or do not need to have too little materials than the body requirement. That is why we need to adjust, we need to regulate. We don't need too excess of water, excess of salt, excess of mineral salts, but we don't need to have very little of these materials in the body. So we need to have a constant balance. If we have a shortage, a body will find a way to adjust. And if we have excess of them, a body should find a way to adjust. Maybe by producing them to add if it is in shortage, but it can happen by removing excess, some extra can be removed out of the body, the process that we call excretion. So excretion can be done by either removing or adding the materials to the body systems. Homeostasis or regulation involves the adjustment of the following materials. These are the examples. We tend to adjust the blood pressure and the body temperature. We don't need too high blood pressure, and we don't need to have excess of body temperature. We don't need to have very little body temperature. It must be maintained constant. And by the way, everyone knows that, for example, we human beings, we have a temperature of 36.7. This is maintained all the time, regardless of the changing environmental temperature. Also, we regulate water and the ions content in the body, carbon dioxide, and even oxygen gas. These are regulated. Right now, you are breathing, exchanging oxygen and carbon dioxide. It means carbon dioxide are moved from the body because it is being produced all the time. The excess of it, or if it is waste products, have to be removed out. And after giving out carbon dioxide, you need to replace it with the oxygen. That is why you are breathing continuously. It is a kind of regulation of the gases. Again, we have food materials like proteins and carbohydrates. We do eat food, proteins, carbohydrates, and sometimes you can take a lot of diet. You can have extra proteins and carbohydrates in the body. Now, the body must find a way to make sure that it remains with the required range to the body, not the excess of it. Sometimes you have extra sugars, carbohydrates, you need to remove excess of it by excretion. So the body must maintain constant level of everything you are putting in the body. That is why we say regulation, or we say homeostasis. Also, excretory materials like urea. Urea is the product of protein metabolism. These are protein, they are large particles, but after metabolism in the body, it gives to small molecules of urea, and these ones have to be given out because they can be poisonous to the body cells. Again, we regulate pH of the body, of the blood. pH, we have water, we have ions in the body. They may cause pH variations. And remember that in the body, the enzymes or the physiological activities takes place at a certain pH range. Therefore, the body have to keep this pH range to favor continuation of the biological processes. If pH change, then the adjustment have to take place. And we are going to, in the next slide, we will see how water is being regulated, how salts is being regulated, how food materials are being regulated. This is all about in our topic regulation. Starting with the temperature regulation in animals. How do we regulate temperature? If you know, if you remember right now or even in the night today, the temperature is keep varying. The temperature of the atmosphere, the surrounding, is not constant, maintained. But we are subjected to this air of the environment, and this air is fluctuating every time. Sometimes very cold, very humid, sometimes very hot, and we feel the changes. And even the blood of the body will change their temperature. But we have hypothalamus in the brain. This region of hypothalamus will detect any change in the temperature of the blood, then act certain mechanisms of the body to adjust the change. And the adjustment can be voluntary or involuntary. If you know, sometimes you are sweating, this sweating you are not, is not by your wish or by your will. It is just involuntary. And there are some behavior. You find the shade, you move, you migrate to somewhere which is cool place or which is warm, just to adjust temperature. So some are automatic, some are involuntary. Regarding to temperature regulation, we get two types of animals depending on temperature regulation. There are animals we call homothermic animals or homotherms, and we have poikilothermic animals or ectotherms. We are going to see the difference between these two regarding to temperature regulation. It means we respond different to temperature regulation. That is why we get two types of animals, ectotherms and endotherms. Starts with the endotherms or homothermic animals. Examples are these one. These are animals whose body temperature are constantly maintained warm. All the time, their temperature is maintained warm. It is constant, meaning that their body is not allowed to cool. Their body temperature is not allowed to cool. It is maintained warm. We will not find them cold if they are alive. These are also termed as warm-blooded animals. Their blood is warm all the time. Even if you are subjected in the cool environment, very humid environment, but your body temperature must be maintained. That is why we say warm-blooded organisms. And it includes mammals and oral birds. Mammals and oral birds. I think in the classification, these are top kingdoms, kingdom Animalia, the top phylums, mammals and birds. Because if you descend downward, the amphibia, the protocista, the reptile, you find them having the cold bloods. But the higher organisms like this one, the mammals, dog, elephant, human, eagle, and this one, all of this will have their temperature maintained warm. In simple way, we say warm-blooded organisms. For the part of poikilothermic animals, these are animals having the variable body temperature. Their body is variable. Their body temperature is variable. It's not constant. Sometimes you find these degrees of centigrade, sometimes low or high. It varies, and their life continues as normal. They can also be termed as cold-blooded animals. They are cold-blooded animals, opposite of the warm-blooded animals. Their body temperature changes according to their surrounding, such that if they are in a hot environment, their body blood becomes hot, and vice versa. It means they take or they cope to the environmental temperature. If the environment have low temperature, even their body will cool down. And when the environment varies its temperature, is increasing its temperature, even their body temperature will increase. So they are same with the environmental temperature. That is why you call warm-blooded animals. They have cold blood, and the examples are amphibia, reptile, fish. All of these ones, the frog, the crocodile, lower levels in the classification. As I said before, these are ectothems. The turtle, the lizard, the chameleons, all of these have cold-blooded animals. So that means this organism will have no adjustments regarding to the environment. They can tolerate with the environmental temperature. It is different from us that if the temperature is increasing, you have to find a way of adjusting, either voluntarily or involuntarily. But for them, they can cope to a certain point. Although, I'm not saying that every kind of temperature can be tolerated by these organisms. That is not the meaning. It means they are tolerant than us, but to a certain limit. Meaning that if the temperature is very, very high, they can even die. And if very, very low to the 0 degrees, they can also die. But before dying, they are more tolerant than us. For us, we have to find a way to compensate. And remember, temperature is very important for other biological activities like digestion, respiration, and the other body activities. And therefore, if body falls below the normal, then these physiological activities of the body can stop. This does not regard to the ectothems or endothems. Any organism, if you don't have the required range of temperature, even the enzymatic activities in the body will fail, that the animal can even die. This is a graph showing the correlation, comparison between ectothems and endothems. This is a representative of ectothem, and this is a representative of endothem. You can see here the temperature is keeping rising for the ectothems. That means this is the ambient temperature, or you can say environmental temperature, and this one is the body temperature. Therefore, the temperature is increasing and the environmental temperature is increasing this way. And this graph shows that as the environmental temperature increases, also the body temperature is increasing for ectothems. But the opposite, endothems, as the temperature, environmental temperature increases, their body temperature keeps constant. It is fairly constant, maintained like 30 something. As I said, for us mammals is 36.7. It keeps constant regardless of the fluctuations in the environmental temperature. This is a good demonstration on how you can differentiate between endothems and ectothems. Now, the ways of gaining heat by the body, because we are saying we have to adjust, we have to regulate temperature or heat of the blood. Now, how do we gain heat? How do we lose heat from the body? Because your body is warm. Now, where do you get that warmth? How do you get that heat? These are the ways in which our body are getting temperature. It is by direct absorption from solar radiation. We sometimes bask from the sun and absorbs temperature from the sun. That is the way of warming the body. Animals on basking, they gain heat from solar radiation and enters the body tissues through the skin. Example, by convection, by conduction, direct touching, and by radiation. This is the way of gaining temperature, by basking. Again, by metabolism of food stuff. And I think this one is the major one because it does not regard to the presence of sunlight or not. Metabolism is taking place even now. We are inside the house or the class, but metabolism is taking place all the time. This involves the process of breaking down food. That is why you eat. If you don't eat, you even don't have enough temperature. The food you eat, their metabolism, they are breaking down. One of the products produced is temperature of the body. So this involves the process of breaking down of food like protein and the carbohydrate in the process of respiration. And this respiration topic you learned in Form 2 class. It is the breaking down of food like glucose to get energy, yes, and nutrients. So respiration is very important, and this one is sometimes said to be a transformer of the body because it generates temperature of the body, and this temperature is important for other body activities to continue, including the enzymatic activities. Another way is by physical activities. Physical activities can be exercise or any activity of the body that you can perform. This will raise your body temperature. These are activities like play, jogging, which stimulate the internal tissues to liberate much heat. And I think this one has been evidenced by everyone here, because when you run, when you jump, when you jog, always you see your body temperature increasing. That is the way of warming the body. Warm. These are the ways now of losing heat by the body. We have ways of gaining and ways of losing. Through these ways, your body can lose temperature, like by sweating. If you sweat, you have the water escaping from the body through the sweat gland, through the skin, but one of the content in the sweat is temperature or heat. Also by urination. Through urination, you lose temperature because if you touch, you test your urine is warm. It is from the body coming out with some temperature gained from the body. Also by expiration or exhalation or breathing out, giving out air from our cells during gaseous exchange. That also is a way of losing temperature from the body. If you test, you breathe out on your skin, you can feel some temperature from in the air coming from inside the lungs. So that is the way of losing heat from the body. Again, from egestion, giving out the feces, also you lose some temperature in that action. These are the way of losing heat, and you can compare with the ways of gaining temperature and compare the two. Do we have so many ways of losing than gaining, or we have more gaining ways than losing? You can compare the two. But all these have to be balanced by the body. Yes. Now, for example, you have seen the ways of gaining. Now you have gained heat to the extent that the body is overheating. There is overheating of your blood. How do you control? Because if you take a good example of a human being, we said you should maintain 36.7 degrees of centigrade, but you have overheating. The temperature is exceeding the normal range, and this can affect other body activities, like enzymatic activities. Remember that enzymes are protein in nature, and under high temperature they can be denatured or destroyed, and other activities fail in the body. Therefore, we need to control overheating. How the body control overheating environment? By homothermic animals. We are dealing on homothermic because they can't tolerate with the rising temperature. They have to adjust. Now, when the environmental temperature of the homotherms gets very high, the body have to regulate the metabolic activities to overcome the condition. It means the body have to regulate their metabolic activities. If you remember we said metabolic activities is one of the way of gaining temperature. Now, if temperature is increasing excessively in the blood, the body have to regulate the metabolic activities to overcome the condition and maintain the body to normal temperature. And these are the outcome after regulating their metabolic activities. You will feel sweating, vasodilation, salivation, and panting. This one may happen in different kinds of species, not necessarily for all of these to happen in all kinds of organisms. No, for example, panting is not happening to human beings, so they can happen in some species of animals, and we are talking animals. Now, control of overheating, hot environment. By sweating, this occurs when the body is overheated, and this one is involuntary one, when the body is overheated. As the water evaporates, the heat contained in it is lost, and hence the temperature is reduced. We human beings, we have a sweat gland. We say a sweat gland that will produce sweat during overheating environment. And when sweat evaporates, it evaporates with some heat from the body. So it is a way of cooling the body. Again, we have vasodilation. This is the widening of blood capillaries. Vessel like vessel, blood vessels. Dilation, expansion, increase of the size of the blood capillaries. The blood capillaries, the blood vessels along the skin will dilate, will expand so that the blood can pass along the outer surface of the skin to be near to the environment, for them to exchange temperature with the environmental temperature. They can be easily lose the temperature from the blood to the outside. This is the widening of blood capillaries under the skin. It occurs when the body is overheated. Now, much blood near the surface of the skin through the dilated blood vessel, therefore, much heat is lost by radiation. That means the dilated vessel will allow the blood to pass near the skin surface. Now, much blood is flowing near the blood surface, and therefore, much heat is lost by radiation, conduction, or convection in case you are touching another body. Also, we have salivation method as a way of cooling the body. It is the secretion of saliva from the salivary glands on the tongue, and this is done in some organisms like cattle or cat, where they produce saliva which is warm, and sometimes they can be leaking on their fur. It's the process of cooling. It occurs in mammals which do not have sweat glands. This one, they don't have sweat glands, they don't produce sweat. Therefore, the alternative way is to salivate to produce sweat, and that sweat saliva escapes with some temperature. They don't have sweat glands in their skin. They salivate and leak their fur, and therefore lose water vapor. You can see sometimes a cat is sitting somewhere and producing their saliva and leaking on their fur as a way of cooling their body, because they can't sweat as they don't have sweat gland in their skin. It can occur in cattle and goat. But we have another way: panting. Animal of the dog family have sweat gland only in the pads of their jaws. In their jaws, this is particularly a good example is from the dog. The dog family have their sweat gland inside their mouth, in their jaws. Therefore, they can produce, they can give out air forcefully, panting. Doing that act is a way of expiring forcefully, and as we said, expired air contains some temperature. That is a way of cooling its body. You will see the dog when he, after running or during overheating environment, they can be panting, doing like. Their main method of losing heat to pant is to pant rapidly with the tongue hanging out. This causes evaporation from the mouth and the lungs. So as they give out rapidly, they give out air rapidly during exhalation, they make sure that evaporation takes place from the mouth and the lungs. Hence, this helps to cool the body. It's a way of cooling. And the other behavioral adaptation, as we said, sometimes is not voluntary. This is a behavior. We undergo this behavior of overcoming overheating by migration and aestivation. Migration, you can decide to move from the overheating environment to the cool environment. And some organisms like lungfish, the fish that can burrow deeper in the soil when it is dry out. Yes, and when after to another season, when water comes back, the animal will come again on the top when it is wet, but when it is dry, tend to burrow. It is like hibernation. It is another way of hibernation, but it takes place in burrowing deeper in the soil to find the moisty soil is. Then when the rain will come, then the animal can come again out, because it needs cool environment, not overheating. They escape dry. So migration, even as or other organisms, they can migrate to another place for cooling. Again, that was the ways of controlling overheating. But here we have overcooling environment now. You are subjected in the overcooling surrounding. How do you solve? Because we don't need to cope with the environmental temperature. We need to adjust. Even if the temperature of the environment is 10 degrees, but for we human beings, we need to maintain 36. Now, what should we do to live successfully in that cooling environment? When the environmental temperature gets very low, the homotherms try to maintain the temperature to normal by the following processes. One is vasoconstriction. Vasoconstriction, I think here there is R, vasoconstriction. Vasoconstriction is the opposite of vasodilation, the process which you explained when in the previous slides, when controlling overheat environment. Now this will be the vice versa. Vasoconstriction, it is narrowing of the blood capillaries near the skin. In the previous dilation was expansion of the blood capillaries near the skin to make the blood flow near the surface of the skin for losing their temperature from the blood. But now, because it is cool now, you can't allow the blood to come outside near the surface. You need to keep your blood deeper in the body so that they escape from this cool air of the surrounding. The blood to pass more deeper so that it cannot be affected with the humidity of the environment, so that to avoid more loss of blood temperature to the environment. So vasoconstriction is the narrowing of blood capillaries under the skin. This occurs when the body is too coolness. Blood does not flow near the surface. In this way, blood is not flowing near the surface. Therefore, less heat is lost because the blood is passing very deeper, not close to the surface. When the blood vasoconstricts, sweat production is greatly reduced. Even sweat production is reduced. I think no one can sweat during humid condition because the blood is passing very deeper, not near to the skin surface. The rate of metabolism is increased and more heat is produced. Why? In the cool environment, we say metabolism is increased. It is because we say one of the way of gaining temperature is by food metabolism. So during humidity, during cool environment, during overcooling, there is increase of metabolic activities so as to raise the body temperature and compensate the temperature which is being lost to the environment, which is cool. So metabolism is a way of producing the temperature because it involves respiration. Another way is by shivering. Shivering, this is the shaking of the body muscles, and it is involuntary action. And it normally occurs when it is you are subjected in the overcooling environment. This is involuntary action involving contraction of hair erector muscles. Hair erector muscles. The muscles that make this skin hair to erect. I think during cool environment, even the skin hair will be erect because of these hair erector muscles. It is involuntary contraction of hair erector muscles, and it results into production of more heat due to the increase in the rate of internal metabolism. And this, because it is a kind of physical activity when you are shivering, now this one will accelerate metabolism of the food, and therefore metabolism will raise the body temperature. It is a way of controlling overcooling environment. Again, the use of fur and feathers or fluffing. Some animals will tend to fluff their feathers, their wings, like some birds. You will find them during overcooling environment. They fluff all the time their wings. That is a way of collecting the air in their fur. Even in some kettles, you find them raising their fur so that to trap air around them and act as a thin layer to protect the heat escaping from the body. As you know, air is a bad conductor of heat. So if air is collected around the skin, will act as a layer protecting escape of heat from the body as we are controlling overcooling. The fur mammals, the animals with the fur and the birds, fluffs their fur or feather during overcooling. This process increases the layer of trapped air. The issue is to increase the layer of trapped air around the skin. Even as if you erect your hairs, the issue is to trap the moving air so that can be stopped and form a layer next to the skin, and the air acts as a bad conductor of heat. Therefore, it prevents heat escape from the body as a way to maintain body temperature. The air acts as an insulation because we said it is a bad conductor of heat, as it is a bad conductor of heat. Therefore, prevents the loss by convection. Another way is by hibernation. Hibernation, this is a behavioral one. Animals tend to hibernate by sleeping. This is a sleeping of an organism for several days in warm places, normally taking place in burrows. Animals can burrow or go anywhere to hide from this overcooling environment. During hibernation, the rate of metabolism are minimized to near zero because the organism is hibernating and sometimes can become asleep, and that time even the metabolic activity will lessen, will decrease their rate, and therefore remember that time organism cannot hunt, cannot find food. It needs to maintain the small food in their body. They have to be metabolized at a low rate so that to survive for the whole length of the cooling environment. Example is for squirrels. These are small animals, small mammals that use this hibernation process as a way to control overcooling of their blood. Mammals like seal and whales use their fats under their skin as an insulator. Yes, some animals have a thick layer of fat in their body, and this fat, as you know, fat is a bad conductor of heat. Also, it is a mechanism of controlling overcooling in these organisms. Even as human beings, with some, like especially females, have more fat layers that helps them even to withstand with the overcooling environment. Fat layer. Therefore, fat animals cannot lose heat easily. Fat animals.
Enlab Innovation Academy inatangaza nafasi za masomo ya Information Technology kwa ngazi ya certificate na diploma kwa wanafunzi waliomaliza kidato cha 4, kidato cha 6 na chuo NTA Level 3. Chuo kipo Kinondoni Vijana jijini Dar es Salaam. Zaidi ya kusoma, mwanafunzi anapewa nafasi ya kuanzisha mradi wa kiteknolojia pamoja na kupatiwa mentor wa kumwongoza. Pia tunamsaidia mwanafunzi kutafuta scholarships pale anapohitimu. Tupigie leo 0677 071 486 au 0744100231 au tembelea tovuti yetu www.nia.ac.tz.